Thank you very much for coming early and coming to this session. Obviously, it's the best session of all of them, so welcome. My name is Tim Buesing. I'm Group Design Director at Fjord, and this is Andy Polaine.
Hello, I'm the Regional Design Director for APAC for Fjord.
And Andy also fills a role inside of Fjord where he does a lot of teaching. So he goes around and teaches everyone the methods and the approaches that we take. But maybe first we explain who and what Fjord is. So Fjord was founded in 2000 and fill in the blank. 2001 or 2?
Yeah, it was a sort of emerged from the ashes of the dot-com crash. So yeah, probably about 2002.
At just about the right time.
Yeah.
Exactly. And really zeroes in on service design and product design as part of service design. Often we like to say any product is kind of a service, a dormant service that is waiting to be awoken.
I haven't put the slides up yet, but they will be. So that short pln.me, it's my one, Polaine.me, get it? / make it 2007. I'll put a PDF of these up.
Yeah, exactly. So that keeps you from having to take notes, and you can go back to the slides. You will find all the names and the links in there. And just briefly, so as I said earlier, Fjord was founded a while ago, but got acquired about 4 years ago by Accenture. So we're now part of a big consulting company, and we are working together with people who are more concerned with big IT transformations or strategic business transformations, but we're the design part of this process. We now have 27 studios alone here in Australia and New Zealand. We have Sydney and Melbourne and Auckland and Canberra, and we're also working in other cities in Australia and help the Singapore office grow. We're about 1,000 designers or creatives of any couleur, and for example, once a year we go to join together in a conference, so that's coming up in September. We're going to go to Berlin, and as you can imagine, that's almost like this conference, just everyone sort of working together, going to workshops, presenting work, discussing work, trying to get better at what we do. So what we do is all around living services, and I'll let Andy explain that.
I've got a clicker, by the way, just plug it in. So we have a whole kind of load of thinking around the future of services and business, actually. There's different parts to it. We talk about living businesses and living brands as well. But briefly, living services are really this idea that we've had these kind of three waves. So in the 90s, we had desktop web happened, and I've been working in this long enough, you have probably too, to remember pre-web, CD-ROMs and kiosks. And that changed the way we'd look for information, changed the way we shopped, all those kinds of things. Amazon still hasn't made its way to Australia yet, but one day it'll be here and the world will be a better place. And it massively changed stuff. And then we went mobile in the 2000s, and obviously that added a whole kind of layer on top, created that whole kind of app ecosystem, all the location-based stuff, and really kind of jacked up social media. And prior to that, it was there, but it was slower. And then what we're seeing in the 2010s at the moment is this rise of what we call living services, and they just layer on top of each other. None of those things obviously go away. And they're really kind of the result of two forces. One of them is this digitization of everything. So, and by that, there's all of this stuff that ends up in those devices, and also data and analytics. You've got connected devices everywhere. The cloud. You've got connected sensors everywhere, and networks and different user interfaces. So as those all sort of coalesce, what happens is you've got anything that connects to the internet, and this is we have this debate all the time about services versus products. My view is that products, as in digital products, aren't really products. As soon as you connect them to the internet, they become a service. Right? They become part of an ecosystem. That's kind of really what we're exploring today. And at the same time, you're getting this expectation of these services, what we call liquid expectations, that these kind of wrap around you. Right? So things like Google Now, things that are reading, constantly sensing, reacting to you in real time, they feel like they're alive, right? And they feel like they're smart, and sometimes they feel like they're creepy. And so a lot of what we're kind of aiming to do is really kind of, with services, is to rehumanize, dehumanize services. So you've had this kind of industrialization of things. If you've ever called a call center and it feels like you're just a number, it's because you're just a number. And so what we're trying to do is kind of make those human again. And the way we go about that with service design is really to look at the entire ecosystem. So that's usually these 5 things, which is people. People are the sort of heart of services, both the end user and customer, but also on the other side of people working in call centers and people providing a service. Products, so so whether they're digital things or actual physical products. Places, so spaces, waiting rooms in hospitals are very different from waiting spaces in hotels. But why? Why should they be? And those kind of things make a big difference. Process, so what's the sort of back-end technology, what sort of procedures and policies and stuff like is in place. And you notice in government often there's a lot of process and policy, it just kind of gets in the way. And then there's performance, and that's both in terms of speed. So we all want. So talking about Amazon, I used to live in Germany for a long time. I regularly in Germany all the shops are closed on Sundays. Which is actually quite nice. Tim's German, he'll know this. I would regularly have this thing, go, on Sunday sort of afternoon, I forgot to get any cat food yesterday. And I'd order it on Amazon, and a guy would turn up on Monday morning with the parcel. And there's that, but there's also performance in terms of what's driving certain types of behaviors. So really, who is from a service design background in here? Is anyone? Good, and I'm glad I did that little intro to service design. What about UX? Okay, visual design of or visual communications of some kind. Developer? Welcome.
Yay.
Yeah, that's a big thing, because we talk about, sort of, when Tim said 1,000 designers, in that we're including our developers, our front-end developers too. So one of the big shifts really is this shift from, I forgot, sort of project managers. Anyone a project manager in here? Thank you for making our lives better. It's a shift from designing from users and things to thinking about people's behavior and activity in a broader context. And that's the sort of real key, and that's where some of the insights come.
But today, we want to talk about microservices. So hopefully that attracted you to the session as well, thinking like, what the hell is a microservice? And we're going to give you some examples to let you sort of feel your way into the space. But what we mean by microservice is really something that serves one single-minded problem in a very succinct way, so that immediately you see the benefit, you understand what little problem and irritant it solves in your life. Here's an example from way back when. Another agency in London created Baker Tweet, which was, it solved that problem that people loved this one bakery in Soho, but they didn't quite know when the freshest stuff would arrive. So the way they used it is they installed this little box that was connected to Twitter, and every time new croissants or any new bagels or anything came out of the oven, it would just turn a dial and say, new croissants fresh out of the oven, up onto Twitter. So anyone who was following them would get the message that now, if they were a really freshest croissant ever lover, they could drop in.
So just go back a sec, because it's by Poke. We forgot to put their name on there in London. And one of the things that drives almost all of their creative ideas is a really cheesy pun. And it's funny, they kind of seem to start at the pun and then kind of go backwards to what the idea might be.
Which is an interesting creative process, to think of a name and then think like, what could this be, rather than finding out what it is and then giving it a name. The other one is a rather large company now because it got bought by Google. Nest is a thermostat, and probably the most underrated element in a house. Normally you don't really worry about a thermostat, but it is also becoming the nerve center, really the hub in the house. And what it can do, among other things, is the microservice of adjusting your temperature based on your location or your intent or your rhythm, whether or not you're probably ill even. So Google now could probably understand, because you're searching for medicine for a flu, it might actually have to raise the temperature a bit. And the third one, Withings. We're never quite sure if it's Withings or Withings.
Well, I always thought it was Wi-Fi things.
Yeah,
so
Wi-Fi things. Let's go with that.
It's now Nokia, actually.
Yeah, Withings connects your regular scale with online or artificial intelligence, and understands your patterns and more or less not only your weight but also your well-being, and it tries to be a support element within your journey to better sleep, better behavior, better exercise rhythms, and obviously better weight as part of that as well, so heart rate and so on. And lastly, Burke's little printer. Again, a very sort of cute, very single-minded idea to bring back print for a very single-minded purpose. So this printer can be connected to any little script that you can write for it. So for example, it could do a news digest, or in the other examples that we have here, it could be your to-do list because you like putting that into your wallet, or you like a little puzzle while you're sort of waiting for somebody else, or you want to be a reminder that you need to go for a run. All of these little things in life that this little printer can address. Another platform example, if this, then that. So, no, if this.
If this, then that, yeah.
There's one T too many in there then.
I have put this, then that. No, that's right. I have to do yeah.
Oh, we're missing a T. So this is a platform that allows you to write scripts that connect one thing with the other, or to get from here to there. So that could be the ultimate wake-up button. It could be telling Alexa to adjust your nest temperature. It could be about opening your garage door at the right moment when your car arrives rather than another one, or getting notified when the dishwasher cycle ends. So all of these things don't solve the world's problems. It doesn't solve world hunger or cancer, but it does take one little irritant out of your life. And the reason why we chose microservices is really, if we had asked you to try to go through a workshop to address all the problems people have with text, for example, we wouldn't be able to go through it in a short amount of time. And to give you an impression of what it really feels like to design a service and still go a little bit up and consider the ecosystem and consider the before and after and all the participating players in there, that's why we chose something that I think we can handle in this short amount of time.
It's, one of the things that's interesting about some of these is like the Buesing stuff. You start off with a scale and it's just collecting your data, right? And you can manually write it down. Then the next thing is, well, actually now we're connected to Wi-Fi so that we can upload your data and your phone can capture that data. And then the next step from there is having some intelligence about what we can tell you about that person with that data. And the next step from there is when everyone else is doing it in the world, and then we can see what patterns of data there are going on. And I haven't got the Fido thing, but there's a project we've been doing at Fjord called Fjord Fido by Jonas Höglund in Stockholm. And it's a better way of managing your insulin dose for people with diabetes. But obviously, there's the personal stuff that can track, if you have to be very careful if you know you're going for a bike ride, or if you know you're doing some sports that day, or if you know you're going to be eating a certain kind of thing or having a big meal, you have to adjust it. And the interfaces to those pumps are really rubbish. It's like 1,000, are you sure, are you sure, are you sure? And it's also click, 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 click. And so the idea is to have a smartwatch version of it. But the other thing is to collect that data about the individual, but also then on a global level, you start getting patterns of data. So you can see very quickly, you start from a small thing, scales, an insulin pump, and as soon as you connect it, you end up with this kind of big service ecosystem and all this data. And what's interesting about if this, then that is right. This,
it is
then
right.
That, yeah. Is they just provide the pipes, basically, or there's like a patch bay for this stuff, and it's enabled those kind of, you can build your own living services. As long as you've got the bits, and those bits can talk to something, then IFTTT kind of can patch it together.
Yeah. Maybe one thing that I wanted to highlight up front, Andy and I spoke about this in this short amount of time when you work together with us. We will help you by coaching and sort of roving around the room, but also think of something that we're going to explain to you now, which is this method of the hand of thinking about your problem. And also, please don't come up with the idea that there is an app for it. So that would be the shortest amount of time spent on the problem, really, to say, well, there's an app that just opens my dishwasher for some reason.
And there's always some magic in those things. Like, I know there's an algorithm that does that.
Yeah.
And there's some stuff that does the thing. It's
Exactly.
like a kind of magic box.
Yeah, we'll send it to the cloud and it comes back. So please also think about that the core of the microservice idea that you have is an object. And we don't call it a smart object, because often when we see these smart homes, they're really actually not that clever. They're really just irritating and full of tech. So we want to create a helpful object. Think of a physical object that plays part in your idea. So please just don't say there's a Wi-Fi router and there's an app and problem solved. So let's get to the activity one, the design challenge. How might we address an irritant within our home life with a single-minded, helpful object? We've given you a bit of a head start because on every table you have a little envelope. In the envelope, if you open that one now, you will find that there is a little irritant given to you.
These are just spare,
these are
blank
spare
envelopes. That would be annoying,
it's
wouldn't
just
it?
on this one.
There you
Yeah.
go.
So please take the one that's on every table and open it. Andy has thoughtfully said, if you absolutely hate your challenge, you can come up front. There's a couple of other challenges here. So if you think this really sucks, I can also say some of these problems are my problems. So you're solving my home life.
But Tim
you
was
can guess
reading,
which ones are really my problems.
Tim was reading through the list, and it's like, this is just your life, isn't it? Every time Tim's,
Yeah, exactly. Those little irritants. So have a read. If you feel completely uncomfortable or not inspired at all, then there's a couple of extra ones up here. But I'll let Andy explain the method of the hand. Talk to the hand, please.
Talk to the hand. So this I have to completely credit two guys, Mario Guidici and Daniel Hunziger from in Switzerland, who I worked with in a workshop once, and they did this, and I just thought it was a very, very useful way of sort of structuring your thinking. I'm going to do a super quick version. It's really useful for big, complex problems. So not this, but it's also really good for pitching ideas back. And the basic thing is you start with a kind of thesis or a statement, and it needs to be something, it's usually better if it's something that's slightly controversial, because, or at least provocative, right? So if it's kind of, you know, we should all recycle more. It's like, yeah, okay, well, we all know that. But, you know, if it's, let's go all Trumpian and say, you know, immigrants are ruining the country, then you have the first question, if you're listening to me saying that, should be, how do you know? And so you get all these questions. Well, how do I know? What do you mean? What about immigrants? What do you mean by ruining? What's the income that they bring into the country? What's the, you know, what do they take out? You get a load of questions. So that forms the beginning of your research, right? And then you have facts. So, well, actually, you know, there's X 100,000 or X million come in. They provide this amount of input into the tax base. They this, that, and the other, right? So you have some facts. And then you have people's stories. So that's the qualitative research. That's the stuff where you're kind of hearing about people's lives and really understanding what it means. And I read an article the other day about a heart surgeon specialist who was a boat person came over from Indonesia, and now, of course, he saves lots of people's lives. So what is useful about kind of that is by the time you've kind of got around there, then you sort of get to your idea, well, what are we going to do about this thing? Right? And usually what happens is you adjust your thesis, right, or your statement, because once you actually have some knowledge, you go, oh, actually, that thing I thought isn't quite like I thought it was, but in fact, the problem is this. What's really nice about this as a way of storyboarding a kind of idea as you're kind of pitching it back is that you do the same thing again, which is, I'm going to tell you a thing. So if you look at, you know, the sandwich videos, you know, the guys who do the videos for like loads of different sort of startups and stuff. It's the guy with the beard who's got that sort of like very droll style of presenting. And almost all of those kind of our new service, click play to understand our new service, they follow this kind of format, which is I'm going to tell you a thing, there's this annoying thing in life that you're going to relate to. Then I'm going to tell you some facts about it and I'm going to tell you some stories about it and answer all the questions that you have in your head as I've told you that idea. And then and this is a great one for clients, right? So if by that point in time, be thinking, the client or the audience should be thinking, God, someone should do something about this. And there's your idea. And it's really important the finger and the thumb, the little finger and the thumb match up, because otherwise you say, here's this problem, but my idea is something else. And people just go, that doesn't match up. So it's a really nice way of structuring. You can start off with a kind of rough idea and then tighten it up. Probably not going to need to use it so much today for the actual kind of coming up with the idea, although it's actually quite useful, a way of kind of just thinking around the problem. But it might be quite useful a bit later on when we get you to do some storyboarding.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Andy. So just to, yeah, that's exactly right. That's the activity 2. So the activity 1 was just opening the envelope, and the activity 2 is now
Actually,
that was great.
Well done.
It?
Round of applause to everyone. You open envelopes like no one I've seen.
Called the Crazy 8. It's not that crazy, but it's crazy fast. Let's put it that way. So now that we have the background from Andy on talking to the hand, and you see it here as well, now it's all about sort of rapidly trying to ideate on top of the challenge that you have on your table. So one of your challenges might be around, what do we have here?
What do we have here? I'm never quite sure what's recyclable and what isn't.
Exactly. Is it pizza boxes? I'm never quite sure. Or tea bags? Do I have to take it apart? So that's a small problem. And where does string go, right? Like string, is that?
Not really paper, that's compostable, I think. But, you know.
Okay.
I quite like this one. Neighbours being noisy, but you don't know them well enough to say something.
That's one of my problems, actually. So take a sheet of A4 paper, each one of you, one sheet per person.
There's a stack in the middle.
They're actually on the table as well. Yes, if you want more room, you can also take the A3. Doesn't really make a difference.
I presume we're going to ruin the tablecloths here, by the way, but with the Sharpies. But
yeah.
So you might want to take an under sheet just for.
Exactly. Just try to protect the cloth from the strong force of the Sharpie. And what you do is you fold it one time to turn it into a half.
Hang on, I shall demonstrate.
Yes.
Folding paper.
You're my flight attendant.
Who's done Crazy 8s in here before? Because it's quite well known. It's a Google
okay.
sprint
Wonderful.
thing. Oh, okay.
Sweet.
Okay, all right.
Then you fold it again.
So you fold it. It's always like short end to short end. Right?
Yeah.
Just in case some people fold weird.
And if you fold it a third time,
I think, yeah, that's right. One more time.
You should end up with 8 playing card-sized segments on that piece of paper.
So when
you unfold it again.
Yeah.
You unfold it again, and now you have 8 little boxes to have ideas in. So we're going to give you 8 minutes, and this is a bit of a time pressure on this. Try to fill as many, and ideally 8 squares, with ideas that address your design challenge. And by that I mean that can be a different interface idea, that can be a different object. Just try to come up with as many ideas as possible that addresses this challenge. Don't worry about that your neighbor might have a similar idea. Don't worry about that maybe 2 of your ideas sound a bit the same. Try to spread them, but don't worry, just go fast. Go fast and rather for quantity than quality. So we'll do that. At the end of it, you need to look at what you've done and hopefully be happy with at least one idea where you feel like this is really strong. So try to, while you're going at it, like this is really my top idea. And then we'll ask you to pitch it back to the group. But first, we'll give you 8 minutes to come up with 8 ideas to address your irritant with a helpful object.
So just to refine the brief, so you've got your irritant. The idea is that how could you make an everyday object in the home, give it some smarts, although we said not a smart object, but to actually kind of help you with that, or everyday objects. Right? So it's not just there may be some digital component to that at some point, but it's not like an app that does this thing. Okay.
Yeah.
And to encourage you, you might say this is the app format, and this is the storyboard format. Right? So you might want to go that way to get yourself out of app mode. Okay, are we ready? Are you doing? Have you got a timer? I've got a timer. And we'll let you know when you've got 1 minute to go. Okay. You ready? Steady. Go. Done.
Thank you very much.
Well done.
Awesome. Give yourself a round of applause. There's, at least 300 ideas in the room. Isn't that amazing? 8 minutes, 300 ideas. Some of them are amazing. Some of them are probably not that worthy. So please take your favorite idea and take it into a very brief pitch round. So we begin with one person, and then we just go around the table and try to explain it in a sentence or 2, yeah, maximum. And then afterwards, whatever you heard, don't take your own idea. Take a Post-it note and write down the idea from the others you liked most. Toss it in the middle, and then pick the winner. So you kind of come together on the best idea, or at least the one that people like most.
Okay? Does that make sense? So you're going to vote, basically, by a silent vote.
This might get a bit noisy, but be prepared to
Okay, so but really,
explain it.
your pitch has to be, you know, I'm going to do, what's this? There's people around the dinner table, and it, I don't know, projects what everyone likes. Done. Right, that's the kind of idea. That's the sort of length of the pitch.
Okay, excellent. Please go.
Okay, has every table voted for their favorite one yet? Need a bit more time?
Have you written it down on a piece of paper? Please write it down now and toss it in the middle.
Choose
Hopefully
your favorite one.
you have a clear winner here.
We need to do the sort of Formula 1 pit stop thing of like if your table's
Make up your mind which one you want to go with.
Did you all vote for different ones? So I'm going to throw in a little kind of in-between activity, because I think the next thing you're going to do, the next bigger thing you're going to do after this is to storyboard it, right? So you're going to, how does this actually work? And we'll talk about it in a minute. But it feels like most of you kind of need a little sort of iteration on your idea, and it's a way for you all to brainstorm as well. But you're going to do it in just like 4 or 5 minutes. One of the ways to sort of think about it is then to sort of draw like the ecosystem. So without just going into a storyboard of the kind of use case, just to think how it works. So in my example, if it's like my kids never seem to like what we cook. So here we are at the kind of dinner table. Here's my kid. There we are, high chair. It's not that old actually, it's not that young. But anyway, and here we are. That everyone can, I don't know, I'm making this up as I go along. So there's a little thing they can press of, you know, and here it's a little thing that says, you know, did you like this meal? Oh, I just turned that into Hitler, sorry. Did you, or you know, like that, and they go like that, and they go, okay, well that's that, and that goes up into our little kind of, or into the cloud, of course. There's the cloud, and then we've got kind of Polaine family recipes over here, and then it gets the kind of the top voted ones are here, right? This is the one that everyone loves, and here's, you know, fish soup is down here with the one in my world. And so then when we're kind of having that other moment of like, oh, I can't think what to cook, then you look up the recipes, and now I've gone all appy with that, but I look up the recipes and I can get it, or maybe it orders the groceries for me or something like that. That's not very much of a smart object, or maybe we've made make the table a bit more smart. Maybe there's some other thing that we can kind of embed in it's tracking the number of mouthfuls or something that my daughter takes.
For example, what happens when kids from neighbors come over, best friends, you know, do they get to vote? How is that influence from outside playing into it? So just try to think of, you know, what are all the players, what are all the connections, and not just, you know, literally electrical wires and buttons, but what are all the connections to the real world that play a role.
So maybe there's a smart spoon there that's counting the mouthfuls that my daughter takes of the food.
Helpful spoon.
Yeah. So have a think about that first, because once you've got that kind of clear of roughly how the kind of ecosystem's going to work, it's a lot easier to then storyboard that of how it's going to actually...
Yeah, and because only one person at a time can draw, actually you can draw, multiple people can draw at the same time if you really want to. But if you feel like somebody's talking or drawing at that moment, just write it down on a post-it note, capture the idea, throw it in the ring, and then the person who's drawing can add to it. So take an A3.
We actually have some of these. Every table's got...
Yeah, brilliant.
There's enough of this to have a sheet per table. So you can actually, as a table... it's between... There's like another 2 pads there, I think, or another pad there. So just grab a sheet of this per table.